Now in this video we're going to be talking about F1 22. As you can tell by the title, we have some news, also gameplay in the background, my first impressions and things I've noticed from the game so far while playing. I'm going to be 100% transparent and give you my thoughts on this, so leave a like if you're going to enjoy this video, subscribe for more. It's going to be 15 minutes of action-packed stuff, and then also hopefully you look forward to my next video in a couple of days time, if not maybe tomorrow, depends how the schedule works out. But yeah, more content arriving soon. We've got 3 videos to make, this one, 2 more, so let's get into it and let's break it all down. Now in the background you're going to be seeing some gameplay. I'm going to be basically just commentating and not really talking about it for now. I want to mention a few things and basically narrate what I know and what I've seen so far, and then I'll point out a few things in the gameplay here and there, so pay attention to certain clips, audio and moments in this background footage. But anyway, let's talk about the breaking news first and foremost. I say breaking news, it's not 100% confirmed, but anyway, 2 weeks ago we were invited to a private event with Lee Mather, one of the head developers of the game, and basically there was a presentation and then we eventually got to the Q&A section and people got to ask questions. One of the questions was, are there going to be DLC circuits in this year's game? And I quote, Lee's response was, watch this space. So yeah, it looks like we could possibly have DLC circuits this year. Now my opinion on this and what I think will be likely and realistic is the following. I reckon we'll probably have Portimao straight away as a DLC circuit because it's a great track, they made it, and it's not in Canada this year, but it'd be a shame to not have it. I think possibly the Chinese Grand Prix as well, they bring that one back. To go with that, I would also maybe say possibly Vietnam. They made that circuit, they never raced there before, and it's in the files and it never got used, so it's a bit of a shame to throw that away considering the resources they would have put into that circuit. And then extras, I would argue maybe and go as far back as maybe even Malaysia on F1 2017. If they can bring that game forward, that would be pretty insane. So those are some circuits that I can think of, off the top of the head. Maybe they might actually go ahead and make some more. If I had to put money on one circuit, I would guess Istanbul, the Turkish Grand Prix, because we've been there for the last 2 years, and it looks like we're racing there again this year as a replacement for Sochi. So that's the first bit of breaking news in this video, which I'm very excited about. The second bit of breaking news, and this has been leaked before, but crossplay is officially confirmed. We are getting crossplay online gameplay in F1 22. Now, it's not going to be at launch. They're still working on it. They're working to try and get it to work as they like. But at some point down the line, we are going to get actual cross-platform gameplay from Xbox to PS to PC in whatever form you choose. How will that exactly be? What are the details? We don't know yet. That was basically just a Q&A question, basically asking, are we getting crossplay? And Lee literally said, yes we are, but not at launch. So another big, huge bit of news, something that's been massively requested, by all of you. And I think these 2 bits of news are huge for the game because it's going to really change how we play, especially online, of course. Last year, I really liked how we had DLC circuits, one a month. We had Imola, Portimao, and Jeddah. And I like that kind of theme where it keeps the game fresh, having a circuit every month. So I do believe and I do hope we get that this year moving forward. So yeah, that's kind of the 2 most important bits of news. Now we're going to talk about my first impressions and the gameplay and things I've noticed. Now then, let's talk about these cars, which are very different to drive. I would say, in a nutshell, in a couple of sentences, I would say these cars do feel very good to drive and very realistic. Now what I mean by that is the satisfaction of you hooking up a lap is great, but it's a massive, massive challenge, especially if you run no assists. So this year, Wheelspin is a massive feature. You're going to really, really struggle and you have to really manage your gears. I feel like high gears this year are going to be a massive theme, a recurring theme where people use, maybe a gear higher than what they would do on F1 2021 because you need that higher gear to keep the rears from spinning and keeping that car control. So Miami is a great example of that. There's a lot of corners, especially the kind of slow chicane, which is very, very slow speed. You have to use 4th, maybe even 5th. Possibly 3rd, but 4th feels pretty good. There's other circuits as well, which I'll try and show in the background, such as the one that stood out to me, Imola, the most. There's so many kind of traction zones and medium to lowish and then also medium to highish speed corners where gearing is crucial, and you can even lose it as high as 6th gear, which I lost it a few times around Silverstone, around Stowe. So it just goes to show this year there's a massive skill element involved in terms of controlling the wheel spin and your rear traction at medium, low, or even high speed, which is really, really awesome. As for the braking, that is pretty much the same. It's 50 bias, same as 2021. You can use 51 bias at certain moments and tracks. What I will say is the braking power is a lot bigger this year, so if you can keep your braking smooth and not lock up, you can actually stop the car a lot quicker than last year's game. You can brake a bit later as well. So again, a bit of a skill element there to it, where if you're good and you've got that finesse on the brakes, you can really make a difference in those crucial braking zones. And yeah, overall I would say it's not a massively changed component, but you do notice the later braking time compared to last year's game. Another thing I want to mention is the general weight of the car. So you can feel it in the low speed. The car feels very sluggish to turn. Also in high speed, you can feel like you've got to put a little bit more lock onto the wheel to really get the car turned. Now all this gameplay in the background you're seeing, I was using a default setup, so maybe it changes with a setup change, but I wanted to get a good feeling for the baseline of the game using default. So yeah, I would say you do generally feel the car weight quite a lot. In the wet, the game is a massive challenge for the reasons I mentioned before. You're going to be really fighting the car in the wet conditions with no assist, especially under traction. It's going to be one of the biggest challenges, I think the biggest challenge in years in terms of F1 games. I really think it's going to test your patience, your concentration, your finesse, and also your setup work to try and make sure you dial that in perfectly. The final key component for me in all of this is the curbs. Now I'm going to try and leave all the examples in the background. We only had 5 circuits available to us during this build, but curbs are massively redesigned, massively changed. They impact everything so much, and it's going to make a massive difference in this game as a whole. At every single circuit, I feel like you can really first of all feel it in the force feedback in your wheel. I'm not 100% sure on the controller, I haven't used it yet, but at least on the wheel you can really feel every single bump and bit of the curb, especially you know, depending on certain types of curbs, whether they're flat, high, sausage, jagged edge curbs, whatever it may be, you really feel those differences, and how some curbs want to take you offline, or you can't even drive over them anymore and brake on them like you would do in F1 21. I found this quite a lot in COTA. There was a few curbs, especially the one at the end of the back straight, where last year you would brake on the curb and you can't do that anymore. Also the corner before that, on the run down to the hairpin, you can't brake on that outside curb anymore. So there's lots of different changes. COTA especially is a track that has been massively redesigned. I noticed it testing the circuit. By far out of the 5 we have, the most updated circuit. It's got all those kind of updates visually to the circuit that you may notice, especially down the hill before the hairpin with the new bridge they've got. But all the curbs around there are fresh. They're brand new, they're different, and you're going to really notice it. Every single corner exit pretty much has yellow sausage curbs, just like last year's race, so you can't run wide, you can't extend anymore. Those sausage curbs are a massive issue, which I'll get into in a minute. But COTA for me was the biggest change, and it's actually really satisfying to drive, but also the biggest challenge. It has a really complex moment where you go through the kind of tight and twisty double left, double right section at the start of sector 3, and with these cars being so slow, sluggish, and oversteery with, you know, wheel spin, it's really hard to get that perfect. That finesse is really tested in that section. Now, going back to sausage curbs, Imola is another massive change this year. So you can no longer bunny hop or glide over the yellow sausage curbs. If you go over them, you are going straight. You're not turning. The wheel doesn't turn. So Codemasters, credit to them, have done a great job with this one, because it's going to make the track a lot more fun, and you're going to use the curbs as they're intended to be in real life, where you don't actually bounce over the yellow sausage curbs. So massive bonus points there. It's going to make Imola a much more fun and satisfying circuit, because before, Imola was really frustrating. You had to basically, to win, to be fast, to be the best, you had to jump and bump over the yellow curbs and hope the car wouldn't spin. Now it's less of a lottery and more of a bit of a finesse game, where you're going to be rewarded by how close you get to those curbs without touching them, and really, finding that balance around that circuit. And also, speaking of which, you're really tested there as well with the new kind of traction wheel spin system. The Tosa hairpin, the exit is very tough. I really struggled through there for a few laps to really get the car to work. And also Acqua Minerale, and also the chicane at the top of the hill is a very tricky one. You do really feel the car weight there. The car isn't as quick or as agile to kind of throw it over the curb like on 21. You have to really be patient. You can feel the car slower this year through there as you try to nurse it over the top of the hill. And other than that, I would say Imola is a big plus. Imola, USA, those two circuits, the ones that we have driven so far, because we have limited circuits in the game, those are a massive bonus. Elsewhere, other circuits, I felt like Austria has been refined a little bit. It feels like they've changed the way the tarmac feels on the wheel, and also all the curves as well, in terms of how they bounce off the force feedback. The really main thing I'd say for Austria, the big change, is white lines. They've actually marked some track limits now, especially on the exit of turn 6, which is one that, you know, was always a bit of a grey area, not really black or white, or you didn't really know how wide to go, and they finally updated that one, which is a massive bonus. Elsewhere, I'd say besides that, Austria, a couple of curbs, I think, to my memory, compared to last year's game, have been changed and updated and refined a little bit. Turn 1 is a huge challenge with the new traction system, where you're really trying to find that sweet spot in 4th or 5th gear, trying to attack and also use the curbs on the runoff to get the drive, but also not spin the car like I did a few times. Elsewhere, we had also Silverstone. That track, I believe, is pretty much identical to last year's game. Nothing has changed on that one, honestly speaking. And then the final one, of course, is going to be Miami. Now, before we get into Miami, I will mention on Silverstone, going back to my point before, I did lose it a few times in the 6th gear at high-speed corners. Other than that, it's a very satisfying track. There's lots of challenges. Luffield and Brooklands at mid-speed are very tough because of the traction. Also, turn 3-4 Village is also a very complex one, especially the exit onto the Wellington Straight. Elsewhere, I would say Silverstone is a pretty chill one. The toughest corner for me on the circuit is the last corner. You're turning and trying to traction up through there all the time, and it's very, very tough. So yeah, finally I would say Miami. Of course, we've seen loads of gameplay. I hit a pretty sweet lap, so I'll let you guys enjoy it in the background, but it was a very, very tough circuit to get right. Co-Masters, to be fair, having seen the race in real life this weekend, they've absolutely smashed it. But yeah, guys, I'm going to leave you with some gameplay and some game sounds of the cars, engines and stuff, little clips here and there, so hopefully you enjoy it. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video, subscribe for more, and yeah, I'll be back tomorrow or the day after for some more gameplay, most likely a 100% race. But until then, take care, and let's go back from me.
Time last lap was a 1 minute 28.1.